make most available, so that forwarding and that type of stuff doesn't go along.
Right.
Which, you know,
All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's just a little after 9. I call the meeting to order, the Monday, May 23rd meeting of the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee. We've got a really full agenda today, and I want to try to move it along as best as possible and be respectful of the several other committees that will follow us. So if there's any conversation, questions, I would just ask to be as concise as possible as we move along. First order of business would be to approve the minutes of our prior meeting, which was April 25th. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to review those. Motion to accept those minutes. Supervisor McDevitt, second. Supervisor Driscoll. Any question or discussion on those minutes? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
are we, just a question, are we approving the minutes for all of the criminal justice, public safety? Okay,
Yes.
so, yeah, okay, I just want to make sure, after 5 years.
You seconded, or any issue with your second?
Yes, yeah, second, yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, very good. All right. We'll go right down the agenda. The first office, the Office of Assigned Counsel. And I would just ask that you please use a microphone so everybody here and on Zoom can hear you.
Nobody's ever complained of not
we
being
got-
able to hear me.
Two agenda items to request. The first one is to review or revise the contract with the Rural Law Center for continued appellate coverage.
Correct. I was here in March asking the same, and they backed out at the last minute before the contract was completed by the county attorney's office. So I told them I wasn't going to give them a raise at that point because they waited too long. So they agreed to do 1 year at the same rate. We'll discuss it again next year about a raise.
All right. Move that request forward.
Just one quick question if I can ask.
Yes.
Historically, how many appeals have we had on an annual basis?
Usually runs around 20 a year. That's criminal and family.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Request to
I'll
move
move
this
that.
forward?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion second. Looks like Supervisor Seaver.
Yes, I'm happy to second it. Sorry, my video is just not on.
Thank you. Any question, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Second request is to transfer current oils funding from 1170 to sub-department codes as listed in the attachment that we have to distribute grant funding into those new sub-department codes. Yes. Anything
Exactly
else?
what it says.
All right.
Shuffling money from
Pretty
left to right.
straightforward. Okay. Motion to move this forward. Supervisor McDevitt, second. Supervisor Driscoll. Any question, discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any
Thank
other
you.
items?
That's it.
Very good. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Our district attorney is here. We'll move with that. Jenna, there's two requests. First one is the request to fill the 9th assistant district attorney's position.
That's correct. That's our first request. We have, and these are kind of tied together because the next request is to fill a legal clerk 3 position. Our legal clerk 3 has passed the bar exam and is getting sworn in June 23rd. So our hope is to promote them into the ADA, the entry-level ADA position, and then that'll leave the hole at the legal clerk 3 position.
So you want to do both requests together, or do you want them separate?
However you want to do it. So we're making that request to fill the first position. Honestly, we had that notice of intent to fill open. They expire. He took his bar out of state and it's taken much longer to get a swearing in date than we anticipated. So he's
All
been
right.
working as a legal clerk this whole time.
Okay. All right, they're related. So let's do them both. The request to fill the 9th assistant DA position and a request to fill the legal clerk #1 position. Motion by Supervisor Bramer, second.
I'll second that.
By Supervisor Seaver. Any discussion or question? Supervisor Driscoll?
Thank you, Chairman. This is effective June 27th or the day that,
So June 23rd, he gets
23rd.
sworn in, formally sworn in, and then he'll have his law license that will be
Right, okay.
completed, right? So he's done all the steps. It's taken, as I indicated, a lot longer than anybody expected.
okay,
So he's ready to go. The benefit is he's been working in the office, doing the discovery side of things. He can't do legal work, but he's learned all our systems, all our software, everything. So he's really good.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
aye,
Opposed? Carried. Any other items?
Nothing else.
Okay, great.
Thank
Have a
you
good
very
day.
much.
Thank you for being here. Public Defender's Office. Our new Public Defender, Greg, welcome, first of all. Best wishes to you and your staff for many years of success and enjoyment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that.
Yeah, appreciate you being here. So there's two items on our agenda. The first is a notice of intent to fill a vacant position, which is the coordinating assistant public defender. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, good morning, honorable committee people. It's nice to be here. Good morning, Chairman Gary. So the Office of Indigent Legal Services had provided our office with a coordinating assistant public defender position, specifically designed to not only take on their own caseload, but also to monitor and to assist other attorneys and to help mentor them, to assist in managing their files. This position was 100% funded by ILS, and we had recently promoted in-house to that position. And shortly thereafter, that attorney was offered a job that paid a bit more in Saratoga County Public Defender's Office and has left this vacancy. It's a very important position. We're very eager to get this filled once again, and we respectfully request approval so that we may post this position and fill its vacancy as soon as possible.
Thank you. A motion to move this forward. Supervisor McDevitt, second. Supervisor Bramer, any discussions or questions for the public defender? All those in favor?
aye,
Opposed? Carried. Second request is notice to fill the vacant position of a legal clerk.
Yes, again, thank you. This position was left vacant by the prior occupant of that position, very competent, highly regarded clerk who moved to the Office of Civil Service within the county and has left this position vacant. Again, this is 100% funded by ILS. And we're very much short-staffed down there, and we're very eager to have this position filled as well. So we would respectfully request permission to post this position.
Motion to move this forward. Supervisor Driscoll. Second. Supervisor Seaver. Any questions or discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
aye,
Opposed? Carried. Discussion, you have one discussion item, which is an attorney retention.
We'll make it brief. My first week, one attorney indicated they were leaving the firm. And my second week, another attorney indicated they were leaving the firm. So I was happily greeted by two vacancies immediately, and a third may be on its way. I just wanted to let the committee know that we are very mindful of the committee's reluctance to deal with budgetary adjustments throughout the season. We hear the message loud and clear at the Public Defender's Office. Please do not tamper with the budgetary process, but for once a year. We respect that. I did want to indicate that our needs may be a little bit more flexible for the process of retention. And we would never bring any resolution or proposed resolution to this committee that would tamper with or tweak the budgetary process out of deference and respect to the committee's position and message. There may, however, in some instances be some need for that flexibility for the purposes of attorney retention. I will also say we're doing a lot of creative things in our department to try to encourage attorney retention, such as trying to make it a much more positive, healthy, better workplace, happier workplace, in-house training and such. So that's the only thing I wanted to discuss, is to let you know that there is these issues. We may have to bring them up, but we would not do so unless we felt it was very much imperative. We're well aware of the committee's reluctance to tamper with budgetary processes, but for once a season.
Understood. Any follow-up? Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman. In my opinion, when we are dealing with public safety, due process, health and well-being of our residents, it's important to have some type of flexibility, being sensitive to the budgetary process, but also understanding that we have responsibility to uphold all of those things that I've mentioned. So I appreciate your comments, and I hope that the committee and the board can be sensitive to that, the fiduciary responsibilities, but also the responsibilities to all of our residents. Thanks.
Supervisor Brammer.
Thank you so much. I'm sure that salary is a big part of that, and I'm hoping that we can address that during the budget process. I'm also looking at this legal clerk, which has a really low salary for a full-time position in the legal office. So hopefully all those things can be addressed.
I had a wonderful meeting on Friday. It was an introductory meeting, but it ended up lasting 2 hours. As much as we swore we weren't going to go into the weeds, that's the first place we headed with members of the ILS, and they too are sensitive to the competitive labor shortages, and including lawyers. You know, I never dreamed in my wildest imagination I'd ever be saying that there's a shortage of lawyers out there, but there is. And although that might sound like music to the ears of many, it's certainly creating some problems throughout our department.
Supervisor McDevitt.
Just one quick observation, and I'm gonna maybe making an analogy based on what I see here, since we're talking about salaries here, but Attorney Carazone, when he basically indicated that he wanted a ninth assistant to add to his staff, and his starting salary is $65,000 for that position. For the base salary of the public defenders, it's $81,000. And my only point is this, that there appears to be just because I know nothing about it, there appears to be a rather significant gap between the starting salary in the two positions. Okay, and they both may be underpaid. I don't know. So just as an observation.
So that's a great observation. And just so the committee is aware, entry-level public defender is, I think it's like 64,000. Is that correct? Same as the entry level. The coordinating attorney position we're looking to post specifically requires, I think, a minimum of 5 years experience.
Okay.
And they have supervisory duties. So that's why the pay is a gap.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Greg.
Thank you. Any other questions from anybody that's remote? I don't see any. Greg, I apologize. Apparently there's one late starter that I wasn't aware of for a request. Am I right? Did I miss one?
No, sir.
I didn't
Mr.
think
Chairman.
so, but Amanda,
Yeah, well, the agenda we had posted online, had a request for a contract with ILS.
Yes, thank you. That was pulled because the county attorney or management was polite enough to point out that that resolution had already been presented and approved. So thank you.
okay. All right. I thought we were on the same page, but thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nothing else for public defender? Thank you for being with us. Appreciate it. Probation agenda. We have two requests. First is to create and fill a new position titled Administrative Secretary to replace the outdated Principal Steno confidential title.
Yes, good morning. Resolution number 1 is related to the current position which is Principal Steno Confidential. Michelle Rodriguez, been with our department for over 30 years, has taken a position with the courts. So with that, we'll look to fill her position, but her title is outdated and really doesn't exist anymore. So after conversation with the Civil Service Office, the title of Administrative Secretary seems to be a good fit. So we would look to create that position and fill it. And when we fill that, we will eliminate the principal steno. So we're not really, we're only looking to fill one position. We're just updating the title.
Okay, understood. Motion to move this request forward. Supervisor McDevitt, second.
I'll second. I just have a question.
All right, the second from Supervisor Seaborn. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Yusi, I apologize. I can't see you on Zoom. I know those on the podium, it's tough to see for the public in Zoom, but I just wanted to, number one, say thank you to Mrs. Rodriguez, who has done an incredible job in that position for many, many years. I think more than most of us realize, and her tireless efforts, and congratulate her on that new and whatever comes her way. But I also wanted to ask, recently, I believe it was last year in the budget, we transferred over some duties as it relates to, you'll have to remind me. I think it was a stipend. I think it was $3,000. I think it was something to do that the DA's office used to do when we moved that because of bail reform or criminal justice reform. Is that something that we need to look at moving to a different department, or, how would you like us to handle that?
What you're talking about is the ignition interlock monitoring. We took the responsibilities of the conditional discharge from the district attorney's office. We worked a $3,000 stipend for the additional duties, which sure, there's a lot to those cases. So going forward, I would like to give that to another member of my staff who does the work, Adam Stevenson. I think we can do that with a 426. So I think that's my understanding. That's all we would need to do with respect to that.
Great, Mr. Chairman, I would just ask that if there's a way with the 426 to add a description of those duties. I know we've been talking a lot about descriptions of duties, but we should also have them with stipends.
Not a problem.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Bramer.
Thanks. I appreciate updating the job titles. I know that that's something I've asked Trish about for a long time. Is this person, the individual person's salary changing?
The salary, I'm sorry. The base salary would remain the same. I'm looking to promote somebody that we currently have within our department who's a senior account clerk. So the base salary would remain the same. She does not have the years as Michelle. So in essence, the salary would be less that we
Oh,
would
it's going,
request.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The second request to fill a vacant probation assistant position due to the promotion of Shelley Clark to administrative secretary.
Yes, thank you. As I just indicated, we're going to look to promote Shelley Clark to the administrative secretary position, and that leaves her probation assistant position vacant, and we will look to fill that.
For motion, move this forward.
I'll make it.
Supervisor Seaver. Second. Supervisor McDevitt. Any questions for the discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. See no discussion items. Anything else, sir?
Oh, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for being with us. Appreciate it. Office of Emergency Services. I see our director is with us. We have one request and a few discussion items. Request is a resolution request for transfer of funds from civil defense supplies to civil defense salaries, overtime in the amount of $16.43.
So moved.
So moved. Second. Supervisor Driscoll, any question on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That was your easiest request in some time.
Absolutely. I like that.
All right, a few discussion items. You attended the Emergency Management Conference in Syracuse, May 16th, 19th. Just give us a quick update.
Yep. So that was a 2.5-day conference out in Syracuse, and they covered 15 different topics. They covered items such as Red Cross offerings, FEMA. They did some New York State dishes updates. They reviewed threat assessment. They had a course on special event management and security. Also, they had a very interesting piece on mass fatality management, lessons learned from COVID. So that was a very interesting piece in how they handled a lot of that. There's also a nice piece on crisis alerts and communications, which is very important in our area. Anytime there's anything that comes up, to get messages out to our residents. So they also covered a couple of recent natural, not natural disasters, but there was an issue on I-81 out in Pennsylvania, and they had that emergency manager come and speak with the group that was there as well to cover that. And they also had two gentlemen from Kentucky who went over the tornadoes that went through there as well. So it was kind of nice to hear some real things that occurred and how their processes in place help them get through that and manage the crisis.
Thank you for representing us, being there. Second one is you conducted a tabletop exercise May 10th of this year.
Yes, we did. The scenario was a vehicle ramming scenario in Lake George on the 4th of July weekend. So it was definitely a very real scenario for us. We had 35 participants from 14 different agencies take place. So we did discuss a lot of multi-agency jurisdictional communications and operational coordination structures. We conducted review of some of the agency procedures as related to the scenario and evaluated the ability of law enforcement, EMS, and other mutual aid partners to coordinate their response.
Thank you. I realize there's a great amount of planning that goes involved into conducting that. So thank you to you and your colleagues for doing that. And the last item is something that we've been discussing back and forth, and that's a Warren County Emergency Services mobile app.
Yes, so we've been looking at about 3 different vendors right now. And the main purpose is to, for this app, is to get alerts out to residents on a timely manner. And, you know, we're hoping that by having an app available, it can get through to cell phones, hopefully before any, you know, power outages occur or before the cell phones go down. That kind of information is vital, so people know where they can get aid and what they need to do for their next steps. The app also will give us some features such as reporting damages, gives them the ability to upload, and it turns into a form on our end, and they can upload pictures as well. So it gives us some real time incidents that are happening out there so we can better manage what our response is going to be. There's also the ability to create your own emergency plans on there for families. There's also, you know, forms that will print out for them. And we can also link people to New York Alerts, National Weather Service, FEMA. So it can go out and grab other websites as well, which is a nice feature. It also, we can add a training calendar to it so people can have the stuff right in their back pocket whenever they need it, which is really important. Some of these apps, the price range on these will range anywhere from 18,000 to 36,000. It all depends on where you go, and that's a total of 3 years. Most of them require a 3-year contract. One of them has the ability of a dashboard where you can go on and monitor your app usage and see how many people are using it, see what they're doing with it. Then there's another one that'll give you more editing control. So that's kind of what we would be looking for on our end, is the ability to do some of our own edits to it. It's possible we might maybe look at submitting an ARPA application for some of this to get started with, because we'd like to get it up and running as soon as possible. So that's kind of where we are with that. But the other thing I just wanted to mention too is we have one more company that we found during the NYSEMA conference. And I think that we want to take a look at that one, and then we'll probably be ready to move forward after that.
All right, thank you. Do you have an idea when you think you'll be ready to make a recommendation?
I would say probably by next month. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We're hoping to get something set up this week with that vendor and go over their product with them. And it's possible we could have something early in June in our packet.
All right, thank you. You know, personally, I believe this is really critically important application for the residents of the county. I think just last month with the heavy snowfall that we had, National Grid, you know, they set up comfort stations and water relief stations and dry ice stations. The problem was many people didn't know it existed because they didn't have power for their TVs, for the computers. But most were able to charge a cell phone in their car or had long battery life. So the ability to communicate and then certainly the inability to communicate with them is really critical. So I hope we can move along on this and agree and get the board support behind it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Anne Marie on any one of these discussion items? Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a minute or two before this meeting, I asked Anne Marie if she could look into the situation with the infant formula and reach out to our Health Services Director, Janelle Jones, and she assured me that she would. I'm not sure how that relationship might work out, but I think that being on top of this situation, not just for recipients of the WIC program, but also all families with infants, and the impact of the inability to access all the different types of formulas that are out there. So hopefully that'll be a good partnership if we can pull it together. But I thank her for her agreeing to look into that. So
Be strong on that, Ann. Take no prisoners.
We'll find something.
Anne Marie, one last question for me with COVID, obviously still among us. Do you have supply of test kits available for supervisors?
I do, yes. Yep, so if you need anything or you want anything, please reach out to my office and let me know. I've brought a couple of supplies up today. I've got yours for you as well. So if anybody needs any, just let me know. We're following the same distribution methods we've used before. So just get a hold of me and let me know what you need.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anybody on remotely for Anne Marie? All right, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Sheriff. Morning, Sheriff.
morning.
I don't think so.
We've got, I believe, 6 requests and then some discussion items. We also have a couple of guests with us this morning, right, from Northern River. So we'll go through the request first. The first is to create 2 new positions. That's patrol officer number 71, patrol officer 72. Yes, sir.
Yes, this was proposed as a discussion item last month, and there was a request for me to query the county sheriffs across the state. I polled all 58, 28 responded, and of those 75% use armed police or peace officers from their sheriff's offices to secure their campuses. This is something we are asking for. We are confident at this point we have a need. Since last month, there've been a couple calls for service. One was in DSS where there was somebody who was emotionally disturbed that went into DSS, had a really adverse interaction with some caseworkers, caused them to cry, and police assistance was requested. As well as the governor's office issued a new executive order just last week, Executive Order 18. And that's going to require our counties to do a comprehensive review, much like our plan to reinvent reform policing. But this is to evaluate how prepared we are to respond to extremist groups and threats to our counties and identify the threats and respond. And I just see this as Warren County getting out in advance of these requirements and being proactive.
Sheriff, can you confirm the budget implications for this year and then we plan appropriately next year?
If this were to be approved, obviously it would take place next month. So I'm confident that in our salaries, regular salaries for patrol officers, because we've had vacancies since January 1st through now, that we would be able to make this, we would not have a need to request additional funding to support this request for this budget year.
Do you have a current civil service list that you'd be able to hire from?
We do. Yes.
All right. Heard the request, the motion to move this forward. Supervisor,
I'm going to make a motion to table this item. I understand the sheriff wants to be proactive, but hearing that we still need to do additional, surveying of what's out there and what our needs are. And I still don't understand completely what we have done with the Needham risk assessment and how we've handled that to secure the facility. I also want to know how many of our current employees are going to be laid off, because I don't think we need unarmed and armed security officers around the campus.
I'll second that motion, just knowing that there is a lot more dialogue and having had a discussion with our chair about looking at multiple options before rushing into this or moving forward quickly, but being able to do some additional research and present different options to us to consider. But that I would second that motion.
We have Supervisor McGowan, a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Even though I'm not on the committee, I have discussed in being on county facilities. We have talked about, I've met with Kevin Hayjos, and I've kind of done my own survey around putting metal detectors. Really, that's the only main door that we use that's not protected besides probation and this side over here. But I've also, our sheriffs that are there, a lot of them retired, or if not, I mean, I'm wondering why we couldn't rearm them. I've talked to them, they'd be willing to wear their firearm. It's a little bit more intimidating when people coming in, with the presence of a metal detector, maybe changing the, I think we could do it because we have the area on the front. But I would really, we started doing this with the insurance, and I would like to follow through a little bit more and then looking at what we can do to maybe arm the people who are already paying, since they are retired. Most of them are retired officers. If we got to retrain them, recertify them for their firearms. I'm not sure, but it's something we can look into. Mr. Chairman.
Well, I'll ask the sheriff for a comment on that. I'm sure there's certifications, training requirements, retraining requirements. So Sheriff.
Chairman, with respect, I'm going to ask for a point of order that we have a motion to table on the table.
I'd like to, well, we have a motion to table it. We have a second to table, but we're on discussion now. So
On the motion to table.
we do, what Supervisor?
Might have jumped ahead, Mr. Chairman. I'd be more than happy to finish up what Supervisor Bramer started, since I'm not on the committee.
Okay, I appreciate that. Is there any discussion on a motion to table it?
Can we talk about the issue at hand or not?
Well, we have a motion to table this request. We have a second.
So
table
we can't
request.
talk about the issue at hand, but we can. we can-
Discuss the motion to table. Let's discuss that.
Any discussion motion to table, you either want to table or you don't want to table.
Yeah. Go ahead with your discussion.
No, I tend to support the sheriff, particularly in the area of, in the social services area. I have been in that building on at least one occasion where I've seen an altercation. Okay, so I think at that building, maybe a need. I'm not sure about the other buildings, but at the end of the day, I put my hands in the sheriff and I kind of, but at the same time, I will support the motion to table to out of respect for, former committee member or a committee member, and just let's bring it back and we'll talk about it at our next committee meeting.
Okay. All right, Supervisor
Just
Driscoll.
one more
question?
comment, and I will concur with my colleague from Glens Falls, both of my colleagues from Glens Falls, but I've pointed out at past meetings on this particular issue that for a number of our departments, we're also looking at untraditional hours, weekends, evenings, even holidays. We're looking at health services, we're looking at the Department of Social Services, in some cases, Office for the Aging, a number of other departments whose staff are doing business on those untraditional hours. And I think we have a responsibility, and I've spoken to a number of staff from various departments to give them peace of mind. Certainly, we have to look at it from a financial standpoint, but we also have a responsibility to all of our employees to know that they're not in potentially harm's way, that we're doing everything within our power and to provide that opportunity for them. So, but let's, we still have some questions, and I would respectfully concur that we can table it, get those questions answered, and come ready at the next meeting if possible, in order to to put this to bed.
All right, just to confirm, the motion is to table this, but to
Yes.
also ask the sheriff to come back with various options
Yes.
for security, not just at the entrance, but this would also be a response to calls for service on the campus.
Correct.
Okay. Supervisor Seaver, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to be respectful of your decision to permit the discussion, but I also want to be respectful of our rules of the board and Robert's rules and the appropriate dialogue for tabling. I am happy, and I would like to request a discussion item be put onto the agenda after this vote. But as it relates to tabling, I would ask that we call the question for table. And if you would please give me an opportunity to ask for a discussion item moving forward as it relates to the items before us here today.
Granted, certainly. All right, we have a motion. We have a second to table this. All those in favor? Opposed? Carry. Second request to enter into an agreement with the Village of Lake George for periodic assignment of dedicated police services in the village.
Before we go to the next item, just if I could clarify. I'm really not sure what you're looking for me to come back with next month. I provide the agenda a week in advance for everyone to review, and I'm available by cell phone 24/7 for any of these questions, so that when we come here today, that we're all prepared, and maybe the questions would have already been answered in advance of this meeting. I discussed it as a discussion item last month. I didn't get any phone calls from any supervisors. I have nothing additional to provide to you. It sounds as though you've got an idea or a plan, Supervisor McGowan, what our part-time employee shared with you can't happen. It's just not possible. But I'll come back. If you want to make it a referral item and you want to ask me questions, I'll answer any questions, but I've provided you with everything I can provide on this topic.
All right. Per Supervisor Seaver's request, we'll add that to discussion items.
Well,
Supervisor Brammer.
on that, even though we've discussed it, I want to be clear that I think you can provide more information about the exact budget implications. You are asking for 2 new patrol officers. I asked for who's getting deleted. I want to see those numbers, because every time we increase the sheriff's budget, that impacts Glens Falls city residents and all of our county residents. And we have a police department in Glens Falls to pay for too. That's one of our biggest concerns. And so that's the question I'm asking for. You haven't shown us that detail yet.
Supervisor Diamond and yourself, each time we propose an item, it's so narrowly construed. If we looked at everything through that lens, you would never approve a piece of equipment for DPW, and you'd always turn down a highway project in Bolton. We are in a Warren County committee meeting, not Glens Falls committee meeting. You're not serving as council people. This is county business, and it will have an impact on Glens Falls residents, but it will for the other townships as well. I'm making the best proposals. You don't have to say yes if you vote no, that's fine. I'm not gonna pull up my toys and stomp away, but I've made a good proposal. I brought it up as a discussion item. I've been available for a month and a half for questions. I'm coming into my busy season. I don't have time to kick the can over this. Things seem to just get tabled, and then they get tabled and then referred, and we don't go anywhere, and that's fine. I don't have any intentions on laying anybody off. There will be retirees that would want to no longer work with us, and that's fine. I have a long-term vision for what our security in this facility and our campus should look like. I'd be more than happy to have conversations, grab a coffee and have that with you anytime. No one reaches out. We shouldn't be having these conversations and asking these questions on the day of a meeting.
Just one more. Sheriff, I appreciate that, and I will reach out to you. I also think it's important to have these dialogues in meetings where the public can see what we're talking about. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Supervisor Seaver.
Sheriff, one of the things that we've been heavily criticized on, and perhaps rightfully so, over the last several months, is our lack of transparency and adherence with the open meeting laws. And one of the items that has come up are these offline conversations, whether they be about debate and email on full content or private meetings where we're subject to violation of quorums. So we have all been asked to pay special attention by our county attorney to open meeting laws. And I do think to the supervisor from Glens Falls, her point about debate on a public session, it's why even today I was emailing asking for a camera so that the public could see you as sheriff speaking to the committee, and those of us on Zoom could also engage as much face-to-face as possible, since we are now entertaining some open meeting law changes that would entail Zoom and these remote meetings. All of that being said, I'm prepared to vote on it if that's all the information that you're going to present. But unfortunately, I can't support it without seeing a proposal that does talk about budget implications, that does address the other supervisor from Glens Falls and his concerns about after hours. Your proposal initially was just to have 2 rotating officers during day hours, but we have so many people that are working in the evening. There were other questions about how do we address security in other areas rather than just at 1340 State Route 9 properties in the municipal center. You know, how are we going to address those additional ones? I had some questions that I shared with our chairman of the committee, which is the protocol that we are, you know, he's the chairman of the committee, and was assured that we would look at multiple options, that we would talk about what does it look like, whether it be a private security, what if it's the security officers we have, what if it's the sheriff's office, what if it's a different perspective. But my question here is, I mean, if you want to vote on it, we can vote on it. But without all that information, I'd have to vote no. I don't know if we'll end up with an answer by next month, but I've asked multiple times in this committee for us to look at the Needham report. And I know Amy Clute has been talking nonstop about this since the day I got on the board. And last year, we were able to really move forward the security concerns with our county building. But I'm also not privy to, nor maybe the chairman is, but of this committee, to the calls that are happening that are unusual or different than what we've seen over the years. But that Needham report is critical for members of this board to review, to look at, to discuss, and to start a budget plan on how we're going to address all of those things. And that needs to happen in conjunction with this committee, in my opinion. So again, you know, respectfully, if you want to vote on it, we can vote on it. But I think the supervisor from Glens Falls was trying to be helpful in saying, let's give this a little more time so we can concurrently address the issues that have been brought up in the Needham report and do our due diligence in sharing this information with the public and debating it in an open forum. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Seaver. Any other discussion on this issue? Bottom line is this committee and this board eventually will have to make a determination if we want to see enhanced security at the entrances and on this campus overall. It may be worthwhile, as the sheriff suggested, that a couple of us meet with him, ask very specific questions so he can get the specific answers back to us. And hopefully we can do that in the short term. Thank you, Sheriff. I think I went to the second item about the Lake George periodic assignment of dedicated police services.
Yes, sir. This is a request from the village mayor, for specific assignment of patrol officers through the summer season, additional vehicle and foot patrol services. This would be a reimbursement of overtime salary and fringe, so it would be budget neutral for the county.
Let's move this forward. Supervisor McDevitt, second. Supervisor Driscoll. Any discussion or question on this? Supervisor Seaver, a question?
Thank you, Sheriff. I guess I'm not familiar in terms of the budget. You said it's budget neutral, but do we do this every summer? And is this, you know, you mentioned some other costs there, but is this how it happens with other municipalities within Warren County? And we offer these services and they pay just what it costs, and then it doesn't. How does this work with other municipalities in our county?
I'm not sure.
Do we do this with any other municipality? Like, I'm sure North Creek probably gets busier in during the summer too. I know Warrensburg sees a little bit of an uptick. I don't know the arrangement with Glens Falls and how that works, but Queensberry, I don't know if you end up with more road patrol. I guess I'm just not familiar with how we handle this in other tourism hubs in our county, particularly actually Horicon or Chestertown's probably a really good example too, because you guys have gotten so busy over the summer. Their tourism has just skyrocketed. So I just didn't know how it worked with other counties and or other municipalities, and I want to be fair.
I can't speak for other counties or other municipalities. This is an agreement that the board has approved for a long time, several years. Something we come forth and present each year. We answer the call to Lake George Village and all of our townships. We provide a lot of manpower and resources during their large events, car show, Americade, any event, and we do so without requesting reimbursement. The mayor used to have a contingent of peace officers, and the determination was made that they no longer wanted to hire and maintain that staff. They put in a request to us that if we could provide additional staffing above and beyond what we provide, even with the influx and volume of tourism, could we do that? And they would reimburse us for all of our expenses, which they do. And this is just, it's a new agreement, but essentially it's the same agreement that we've had year after year.
So just to follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So I heard you say we've done this for years and it was the same thing, but then at the end, I kind of heard you say they did do peace officers before and now they've chosen not to do that and they want to use your officers. So is that new for this year and will it affect your staffing levels other places in the county?
It's not new for this year and it will not have any impact on our staffing. This is above and beyond. It's voluntary. If the officers, we put out a request for calls for certain shifts. If they would like to take it, they take it, but there's no mandatory overtime to cover these shifts.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, we had a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Third request to add the civil service title of Special Patrol Officer to the Warren County Sheriff's Office Table of Organizations for use within certain part-time police officers. Sheriff?
This is a request for really just an additional civil service title. We have had part-time officers working in our schools, serving as school resource officers, working under the title of police officer part-time. Trish Neninger, the personnel director, has brought it to our attention that there are limitations to a police officer part-time in New York State through civil service. They cannot work, technically, they're not supposed to work more than 20 hours or more than 1,040 hours throughout the course of the year. And if they do so, they're in violation of their part-time civil service provisions. Special Patrol Officer is a title that would allow someone to work in a public building in a school system without these same limitations. Our officers are still going to be sworn police officers. Nothing will change for the budget. The people in the schools will still be the same. It'll just be a different civil service title.
Thank you. Motion to move this to the board. Supervisor Driscoll, second. Supervisor McDevitt, any further discussion or questions on this? Supervisor Brammer.
I'll ask the sheriff, how's it going with these officers?
Our schools, fantastic. You know, we handpick the officers, we get feedback from the schools. We want to make sure that the relationships in every school district, they're satisfied, and they are. We're blessed each year that these part-time employees choose to come back. We always hold our breath through the summer in hopes that they're retirees, that they'll want to return, and they do, and it's going very well.
Any other questions? Supervisor
Just a
Brammer?
quick one. Sorry, this is a policy question. Are those officers assigned to conduct arrests?
No, what we do, every municipality operates a little differently, but our school resource officers, we want to maintain a positive and healthy relationship with the children in the schools and faculty and staff. So if there was an incident where a request was required, the school resource officer is going to be engaged somewhat, but another officer is going to be called in to actually handle the arrest, so you don't jeopardize that student school resource officer relationship.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the sheriff on this issue? All those in favor, moving this forward?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Next request, enter an agreement with Hacks Quality Flooring.
Yes, this was, it's a new agreement. It's going to be a one-time agreement, or it should be. We have carpeting in our building that needs replacement. It's in disrepair. And the proposal came in, it went out for request for proposal, came in at $5,766.45. This is just a request to complete those repairs.
Thank you. Motion to move this forward. Supervisor Driscoll, second. Supervisor Bramer. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Last request is transfer funds within the sheriff's office budget to address a projected deficit in a law enforcement expense code.
Excuse me, Chairman, but did we do 5?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll make the motion to reappoint the members.
All right. Number 5 was to reappoint.
There's actually 3. If I could, the agenda says 2, but the resolution request is accurate. It's 3.
All right. So let me state it correctly. I skipped number 5 request, which is to renew 3 appointments in the Warren County Traffic Safety Board. The motion to move that was Supervisor Bramer, second. Supervisor McDevitt. Any questions for the sheriff on this?
Oh, I do. If I could start video. I see my name's on there. Was that just because, should it be the chair of criminal justice be on that?
I believe he is currently on. It's just because your term expired and it was my understanding that you still wish to be a part of this group.
Okay, just want to clarify. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Supervisor Leggett. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now, the 6th request was to transfer funds due to a budget deficit. Yes, sir.
We're getting a good handle on our budget, and we're really working very hard to stay within the adopted budget. We had some expenditures that came along. We've made some budget transfers. This is one where the code is depleted and we can't find an area to take it. We have 3 live scan stations that are in need of upgrades for cloud storage, as well as moving them into a new version of Microsoft. It's going to cost about $15,000. So we're requesting to take some funds out of salaries to move into this technical code to take care of this upgrade or these upgrades.
All right. Move this forward. Supervisor McDevitt, is that a question or a
I
motion?
had a question for him.
All right. Is there a motion to move it forward? Supervisor Driscoll, Supervisor McDevitt is second. On a question, Supervisor McDevitt.
It was just a very excellent picture here about as part of this agenda item, it talked about body cameras and the Axon Roadshow open house. It looked like a very impressive presentation, and I'd like to, I'd like to actually get in the trailer and see what's going on.
That's a
But
discussion item. I will definitely touch on that, Supervisor McDonough.
Yeah, I guess my question is this: do we currently have body worn cameras in Warren County?
We do not within our sheriff's office. We had a pilot program that we were running for a short time. It's something that we hope to eventually attain, but it's an expensive venture. And it's not just the purchasing of the equipment, but it's storage, maintenance. And with that roadshow, I would encourage all the supervisors to go to see firsthand what is offered, the most current technology. You can pick the items up, have conversations with the experts. Our members will be there. It's going to be, it's an all-day event.
And one question, just a personal opinion on your part. Do you believe that body worn cameras are a good idea for the Warren County Sheriff's Patrol?
100%. Absolutely. For 2 reasons. Evidentiary, that the information that's collected is real. It's live. You can see it, you can hear it, as well as protection of the county from liabilities. If we receive complaints against our officers about misconduct or wrongdoing, you don't have to have a he said, she said. You can push play and watch and listen for yourself what actually transpired.
And then this will be my last question. How much money are we talking about to kind of implement body worn cameras?
Initially, it'd be just under $300,000 for the first year, and then there's maintenance year after year. If we lock in with this vendor, it's a 10-year agreement, and you'll know the price for the next 10 years. With that agreement, the equipment will always be the newest, the best. If something breaks, if it's not serviceable, they replace it free of charge. But again, I can come back with a proposal, and I'll do that another time. My thought was to wait to get into the budget cycle for this year and have conversations with the budget team to see if we could make it fit in the 2023 budget. But it's something we're going to continue to work towards. I understand, and I know that this board is very responsible. We ask for a lot. Our sheriff's office is expensive, but I think that we give you a lot, and we'll continue to try to progress forward and do it as fiscally responsible as possible.
I would encourage you to come forward, at your discretion with that proposal.
Before there's any other questions on this, this is a discussion item. Let me get back to the original request was the transfer of funds. So there was a motion and a second on that. Is there any questions on that specific request? If seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed? One opposed? Okay. Carried. All right, Sheriff, I know you've got 4 or 5 discussion items. Since we're talking about the body worn cameras, did you have a follow-up question on that?
Well, I just want to say, it is a serious budget implication that you're talking about. Maybe it's something that we can look at for ARPA funds. And I do want to know, as I was thinking about your comment earlier, on Friday, I did vote against a whole bunch of DPW projects. Because I do think it's important that we consider all of our county and the budget implications of all of these things.
All right, any other question while we were talking about the body worn camera and the open house that Axon is having? Any other questions on that? That's the second discussion item. All right, the fire range improvements, Sheriff?
Yes, as you know, we had some improvements that were made to our range, and I want to publicly thank Kevin Hajos and his team. They've done an exceptional job. Our range will be essentially brand new by the time that they're done. And it is going to be done to the safety standards that would satisfy his team, self-insurance, as well as our sheriff's office. We're not in there yet, but it should be concluded rather soon.
Any questions on that, Sheriff? Thank you. Next item was the Adirondack Common Ground Alliance Annual Forum.
This is just a follow-up to last month's meeting. I know that there's always conversations about our sheriff's office and our ability to continue to move forward with Executive Order 203 and police reform and reinvention. I'm speaking on a panel at Gore Mountain on June 15th for the Adirondack Common Ground Alliance Annual Forum. And that's a group that the topic for that day is police and community relations. I believe it's open to the public. And again, all day, June 15th, it's something that they requested I come and participate. And we always want to hear feedback from the public, find out how we're doing, how we can improve, and how they feel our relations are in the community.
Questions on that for the sheriff?
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you. I'm on the Common Ground Alliance Forum core team. There, we are happy to have Warren County Sheriffs be present. I think it's a stellar organization, the Sheriff's Office, that has a lot to provide. This is of interest across the whole region of the Adirondacks. And I want to thank the sheriff for being willing to attend.
Thank you, Supervisor Driscoll.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to attend myself. Just a reminder, that's also the same day as our evening meeting, which begins at 6 p.m. But I think there should be plenty of time to get back to this building after that. I think it's due to finish up around 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right, thank you. The next item involves a couple of our guests. And Sheriff, before you introduce them, excuse me, last Friday at the board meeting, the issue about the contract with Saratoga County for services was brought up. The board passed a resolution that it would move forward as long as Saratoga County also passed the resolution. They did that first. I believe if I misspoke that, please correct me. Well, I believe that's correct. Do you have any update on that issue with Saratoga County?
I just spoke with Sheriff Zerlo this morning, and he wasn't sure at what point or what status it was with Saratoga County, but he agreed that probably the best practice would be to have the agreement partially executed from their side, forward the partially executed agreement to Warren County, and let us fully execute it on our end. I don't have a timeline for that, but I can keep an eye open for it if you wish.
Okay. Is there any follow-up questions on that? I believe that meets what the board requested. Right. Okay. Are there any other discussion items? Supervisor Seaver, did you want any further discussion on the security, or were all your comments and questions resolved before?
I just am asking that you please put on the agenda an opportunity for us to review the Needham report. This has been something that I think in the past we've done partially on the record publicly, and then anything that's really vulnerable, we've talked about in executive session. But at this point in time, given the need that is being requested from the sheriff's office, I absolutely think that we should be hearing from Amy at the same time and Needham. And, as I've said before, this board has been hesitant to just even implement some introductory security measures. And I think it's worth a discussion again, and we should all be informed about it. I would hope all the questions that were asked today on the record would be addressed at a follow-up meeting as well. But to the best of our ability to have this dialogue in public and give our public a chance to weigh in too. But if we could get that on, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Between Amanda and the sheriff, can ensure that gets on the agenda? Sure. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on this item? Are there any other discussion items before we move to Northern Rivers discussion? All right, Sheriff, at last month's committee meeting, was an issue raised about services being available to law enforcement for mental health services. There was a follow-up. We contacted Northern Rivers. They were gracious to come here today to tell us what they can provide and what they do provide. So do you want to add anything before we introduce our guest?
No, I will just say that our the undersheriff and I met in the senator's office with administrators from Glens Falls Hospital. And especially in light of Executive Order 18, these are going to be discussions that we're having for months, if not years to come, in ways to better serve our community and their mental health. We work very well with Northern Rivers. They are a resource, but as I said last meeting, their resources are limited. And I think it's come to a point where we need to do more for them so we can do more with them and figure out a way to have some type of 24-hour, 7-day-a-week mobile crisis service for residents in our county. But I'll let them explain what they have to offer for our residents.
All right, if you would please go to the podium, just introduce yourself and the organization, a little background. We appreciate it.
So I'm Jennifer Eslick. I'm the Executive Program Director of Crisis Services at Northern Rivers. Hi, I'm Adrienne Slako, the Program Director of Crisis Services at Northern Rivers. So we are a 6-county mobile crisis service. We cover Warren, Washington, Saratoga, Albany, Rensselaer, and Schenectady. We provide the same assessments that happen at the hospital to decrease hospitalizations, but also provide support to the community to decrease also emergency services having to go out, but also the cost of emergency service bringing folks to the hospital that don't actually need to go to the hospital. And it also opens up beds at the hospital for people that really are sick and actually need to be at the hospital. We, across our 6 counties, work really closely with law enforcement. In Schenectady County, as an example, we are actually built into their 911 system that started about in March of last year. February, I apologize, which is 2 pathways. One is if a call comes into dispatch and it's screened that does not need law enforcement response because there's no imminent safety concerns, it actually gets transferred to us and we manage it as if somebody called us directly. And then law enforcement does not need to go. That was about from March to December of last year. We saved about 75 police response calls. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot. And especially for Schenectady County that has tremendous amount of calls. And that's just going to continue to improve and get better. The other one is when law enforcement gets dispatched to an EDP call, they request us on scene and we will meet them out there. And many times we can actually allow law enforcement to drive away because it doesn't actually end up being police need, which I'm sure your officers find all the time. It's hard for a dispatcher sometimes to necessarily know what if there is police response, but with everything going on in the background, they think that police need to go. And many times it's just individuals looking for help. In regards to the 24/7, right now we are Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. If COVID had not hit, we would already be 24/7. Part of the New York State plan to go increase crisis services across New York State. They've actually just started an initiative. It's a 3-year plan. They want every county in New York State to have crisis services and also for them to be 24/7. So they're putting more money into crisis services. We're actually far in advance to many of the counties that don't even have crisis services. So we're already billing, which Medicaid allowed us to start billing as of last year, which is part of the plan to go 24/7 because you can't bill Medicaid. Part of the rule was you had to be 24/7, but because of COVID and workforce crisis, they allowed us a plan to go 24/7. So we're state and county funded. And then we also, with the Medicaid reimbursement, continues to help support additional staffing and going 24/7. Our goal right now is by the end of the year, again, workforce crisis plays a big problem with that. As you know, just as an example, Alice Hospital had to shut down their inpatient unit temporarily for adolescents because of staffing crises. Hospitals are going on diversion across the entire state because not only do they have so many mental health folks going to the hospitals, but also they don't have staff to staff their ERs and crisis centers, which is why the state has decided to start putting more money into crisis services. Because for lack of better words, from a budget sense, it's a lot cheaper to have us go out and do an assessment that might cost a couple $100s. I don't really it's like $50 here, $100 there. But a hospital visit could be like $10,000. And then that's just taxing to the county and the communities and also the individuals that maybe can't afford to pay for those costs. So in regards to law enforcement and our services, we do trainings with law enforcement. We actually just spent a whole day in Washington County Sheriffs doing not only training on de-escalation, but also working closely with them and reviewing hard to reach individuals in the community. And we do respond. Our response time sometimes is the biggest problem for law enforcement. Unfortunately, they have not given us lights and sirens yet. So we have to drive within the speed limit to get to our crises. But usually, again, it's a situation where it's probably, if you're calling us, you don't necessarily need to bring the individual to the hospital. And so we encourage you to involve us so that individual does not need to go and then to tax the system any more than it already is. You know, it's a great service. We are staffed. You know, we did lose some individuals during COVID. We did not stop going out in the community during COVID. We believe in our service. We believe that we're the behavioral health of crisis services. So when everybody else kind of shut their doors and went home, while EMS and fire and police were still out there, we were still going to homes as well, because we believe that we are the emergency services of behavioral health. And our goal is to really keep people out of the hospital that don't need to be there. So we really encourage the community, even if it's as simple as we ask law enforcement to keep our magnets in their cars. So every time you go to a call, you can make sure the community knows to call us instead of calling 911. Everybody calls 911. In Schenectady County, we started out across the county. We might have had 500 calls in 1 year's time. After partnering with Schenectady County, all law enforcement, our calls went up to 2,000 in Schenectady County. We, in 2018, went to our central lines. We answer our calls just like a dispatch system. It's always a live clinician answering the phone. So sometimes we can manage it telephonically, almost like a suicide hotline. And other times we obviously dispatch a team right out to wherever the individual is. We go everywhere. We go to probation offices. We go to Stewart's parking lots. I mean, we go pretty much anywhere law enforcement goes if there is an emotional disturbance or behavioral health crisis. And that can be from a 4-year-old not wanting to get on the bus that sometimes parents call 911 about because they don't know what to do, to that psychotic individual or that person, maybe some of the individuals you were describing, maybe at DMV, or individuals having some type of emotional behavioral response. Am I missing anything? You told me 5 minutes. I'm not a 5-minute person. So
Yeah,
I'm going to try to stop here
No,
and
Jen,
answer any questions.
First of all, thank you for being here and your patience waiting for us,
Of course.
and for the services that you provide, not just in Warren County, but certainly throughout the capital region. I'm sure we have a few questions. Supervisor Bramer first.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Last week on Friday, our Board of Supervisors also approved $1 million to go for behavioral health services increasing in the county. We had at one of our other committees representatives from Warren Washington Association of Mental Health and 850 to come and talk about the services. So I really hope that you guys are one of our service providers with the Community Services Board. I think you are. So I'm hopeful that we can utilize some of that money, which hasn't been exactly specified out where it's going, to help make this service 24/7 in our county, and maybe work with the sheriff's office to get it right through the dispatch, through 911. That'd be great. And that also aligns with some of the issues we are having in our DSS building over here. It sounded to me more like it was a behavioral health issue, not necessarily a safety 911 kind of, we need the cops there, because the sheriff has told us, my officers they're not the best. They're not totally trained for that situation, the de-escalation thing. So maybe we need other resources to go out on an emergency basis to respond. And I think that's what you guys are here for.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, we actually encourage the community to call us because we actually, and not because we don't work really closely with law enforcement, we actually go out into the community to homes, to locations, whether it's be DMV or, like I said, courts or probation, or somebody's home without law enforcement. We screen it for safety, and we try actually not to burden law enforcement because they already have enough to go on other calls or calls that maybe are out without of our grasp. But even calls that are like, maybe like a barricaded individual, we get called all the time. We work with crisis negotiation teams in Troy, state police call us because we want to be there to support not only the individual that's having that crisis, but also law enforcement, especially talking about body cams, right? Right now, you don't have body cams to protect yourself. So if we're there, we can at least try to help provide support. And if something awry goes, you can always say we had the right people on site. So we really encourage law enforcement to partner with us. It's a collaboration, it takes time, but we are a part of the community service. Rob York is the commissioner, and he actually, the same day that Mike had called me, I was getting calls from him too, and I was like trying to put all the pieces together. So yeah, so he does, he's, one of the commissioner of mental health. So with each LGU is part of the contract that pays for our services. In the North Country, we have our children's contract, which is covers Saratoga, Warren, and Washington, and they all put money into that. And then we have our 5-county adult contract that is all of the counties except for Albany, because we only do children response in Albany because they have their own adult team. So, but we do kids and adults in all the counties. So in regards to the Medicaid, the idea was that the Medicaid would help also fund and get us 24/7. But Medicaid also has a lot of stipulations. And so, for example, anybody 21 and under, anything telephonic, we can't bill for. It has to be in person on site. And and then obviously anybody that doesn't have Medicaid, we're a free service to the individuals. So nobody actually pays for our service, which is why the funding is really important, and why we also, try to work with dispatch systems or law enforcement to continue to prove the need in the community from a data standpoint, because the need is there. And I think that it's, to staff overnight, right? Obviously that's salaries. And so if you can't bill for certain parts of your service, it's hard to also pay for an overnight staff individual. Because if you have, let's just say it's $50,000, right, for an overnight person to help triage the crisis line, any calls that are 21 and under, we would not be able to bill for. So that doesn't support that position. So then we have to hope that during the other hours that we're able to support those positions. And so though the funding, additional funding is helpful, state and county funding is super important. And part of the reason why we didn't go 24/7 is because obviously with COVID, a lot of money got held back in the mental health side. And so there was budget cuts, but I think we're getting back in a good position now, so.
Jen, for Warren County calls, where does your personnel respond from?
We are right on Bay Road in Queensbury. So we have 2 locations that cover the 6 counties, and our Bay Road covers Warren, Washington, and the top part of Saratoga County. So
Supervisor Seaver, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple if you don't mind.
Sure.
I went back to look at some of the emails from Rob York, and I apologize I'm not there in person today, but I do appreciate the information you're conveying to us. And I have a couple questions, but one consideration for the committee as well. And is the sheriff still there?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. So what I would like to know from the emails that went back and forth, and this is a good example of why we should put this on the public record. Rob had indicated that the incident that Sheriff LaFar shared with us at our last meeting would have been appropriate for the mobile crisis team. This is from Rob. This is where the 911 diversion idea would be a benefit. The officer would not have been dispatched as a first responder. Mobile crisis would have been. And then he goes on to talk about the expansion of those hours for the mobile crisis response team and crisis response team training. And an idea that perhaps the expansion of those hours could be covered by some ARPA dollars applied just to Warren County. I'm wondering if that's something that would meet that need. I listened very closely when our sheriff said we had a gap in services, and it sounds like the gap that we might have is that 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. On the weekends and 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. during the weekday. But is this something that you could do a proposal on and this committee could refer it to ARPA for funding? And if so, would that meet the need that the sheriff has identified in terms of providing these types of assistance to both law enforcement and obviously to the individual? We know that COVID has seen a huge increase in our numbers and has a profound impact on mental health. So I think this is well within that umbrella of ARPA dollars, at least initially, to get it started. So those would be my questions, however you want to take them, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Seaver. Jen, you respond to either?
So in regards to dollars or budgets, I would really have to go back to Rob York as the Commissioner of Mental Health who funds our program. We obviously can provide any data that's necessary to show what we're doing so far in Warren County and where our calls come from and kind of even areas of Warren County. But in regards to, budgets or increasing dollars, that really is a Rob York question. We're not in charge of our budgets. We just receive the budgets and then obviously staff our programs. In regards to it being siloed to Warren County, again, I think that would be a Rob York question, but because it is like for adults, it is a 5-county contract. I think that it just is a matter of, each county puts a certain amount of money in. So not every county is equal in their funding to the county, but as a program, we serve all 6 counties. And just because one county gives more money than the other, we can't necessarily change our ability to respond because it's not based on that. It's based on when calls come in and where the calls are. And so, if Warren County doesn't have a call, that day, but there's a call in Washington County, then we're going to go to Washington County and not hold that team because again, we cover 6 counties, not just Warren County. But obviously additional funding helps in resources, whether it's just management of crisis line or additional staffing, to support the community. So as a whole.
So if funding was available, would you be interested in obviously be able to acquire staff to provide those services on a 24-hour basis?
We are always open to money to expand our services. We really believe in our service. We really believe that it's a positive impact on the community. And again, down from, law enforcement not needing to respond to calls that we can manage because that's our specialty, so that frees them up for, maybe a situation happening in the village of Lake George, for example, during the summer events. So they're not then tied up in a call that we could be at. Or just in general, providing that additional support. A lot of people just call our line just to talk. And that's the piece for the overnight. Most overnight calls, all the research I've done across New York State, or even using Albany Mobile Crisis, who actually responds with police because they're a 1-person team. The call volume is not, it's not huge. Even when I work with dispatch from Schenectady County, but it's those callers that might be calling 911 just to talk, that then law enforcement's getting called out to. the calls that law enforcement probably get called out to on the overnight are probably calls that we could definitely assist with, but they probably are more likely needing to go to the hospital just for the dynamics of what those calls are. But from a standpoint of providing telephonic support, so individuals aren't calling 911 or just going to the hospital, I think it's a much needed service. And obviously the state believes in it because they have just started a 3-year initiative to make every county. I think it's going to take a little longer than 3 years because it's taken us this long just to get to where we're at. And we've been up in Warren and Washington County for 7 years. We try really hard to get everybody in the community to know about us, but there's a lot of times we'll hear, oh, you must be a new service, and we're not. We've been here for 7 years. The only difference is that in 2018, we started taking our own calls. Prior to that, you had to access us through the hospital, which is the 939 hospital in Glens Falls.
Another question. I'm sorry, Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you. I did have a question for Mr. Moore, maybe. Do you have a recollection if Rob York was intending that the funding allocation already for this service, or do you think we need to refer this back to ARPA and maybe ask our chairman here to work with some of our other county colleagues?
I'll talk to Rob and get the answer to that question. I don't recall offhand.
Okay. Because if it takes us going to collaborate with our other counties to make sure that there's enough funding there for the overnight for all the counties, I think that's a worthwhile effort.
Sure. Okay, Supervisor Thomas.
Yes, I would caution the board on the ARPA dollars for this service, because I don't see this service ending in the next year or two. And I think if the board has a desire to fund this should be worked into the budget so that it's paid for.
Thank you. Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to be clear for myself and those watching in. Maybe it's a question for the sheriff. If a individual on the campus of Warren County in any municipality, including the city of Glens Falls, witnesses some questionable behavior, my intuition is to contact law enforcement first. I just want to be, sure on the process. I don't have the capabilities of triaging who should get that first phone call, and my experience is I'm going to call law enforcement and hand the ball to them to do the right thing. So am I correct in that understanding?
So if my answer would be, as long as the person's not necessarily doing anything unsafe or doesn't have a weapon, I would hope that you guys would call us first and let us respond, and then we would decide whether the police need to go or not. That's what our service is. And again, it doesn't mean that law enforcement might not end up there, but if somebody's just acting bizarre, as an example, there's no reason for law enforcement to necessarily be called. We would be able to come out and assess whether they're safe or not. But I obviously deter to whoever's making that call on what they feel their safety concern is.
So each of our, if I could just, thank you for that response. So each of our, we've got 700 employees here just on the campus, and if they witness something in or around their departments, health services, social services, office for the aging, veterans, whatever the department is, are they going to have that magnet, or are they going to have that card in their wallet or in their head to make that phone call, or are they more likely to contact the sheriff's department, or in the case of Glens Falls?
Right now, they're probably more apt to call 911, which is why I was very grateful to be able to come so that we could find a way to navigate and get everybody our information. And again, that's where I was just saying, even something as simple, even if law enforcement, sometimes, our response time, depending on where we're coming from, we at least say, like, please continue to give our number out for every call you go to, especially the calls that you're driving away from, that don't end up needing any force or needing to bring to the hospital, because then hopefully the next time they'll call us. And so it really does take the entire community to get individuals to be calling the right people. it's, you know, it's all of us that have to, you know, participate in getting individuals to know about us. So if that's a matter of me getting magnets to everybody, or making sure our flyers are up, I would just need to be connected to the individuals that I can provide that information to. And then, so.
Jan, as you're aware, in addition to the sheriff's office, we have two other law enforcement agencies in the county, the private services, Glens Falls Police Department and New York State Police. How would you describe your working relationship with them? Are they both aggressive in terms of calling you when needed?
So the state police recently started to utilize this more than they ever have. And I actually just did meet with very briefly, and we're planning to set up a meeting with the major down at Troop G, who covers up in this area as well. He's going to get me a meeting, you know, to talk to all of the commanders or captains. I'm sorry, I can't remember what the titles are. Everybody's different. To at least kind of start that conversation in regards to up in this area. You know, I think that we've seen an increase like with Washington County Sheriff, because we just recently trained with them. I think that, you know, about a year and a half ago, we did present to the sergeants in Warren County Sheriff. I think though, what I have found and what Adrian has found is that when we talk to the uppers, it doesn't always trickle down or necessarily, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that, you know, people are fed, just even our own employees are fed so much information that without really hearing it and understanding it and being able to have dialogue, we have found that when we've actually gone in and done like roll calls for the actual patrol, then we see an uptick and then wanting to use us because then they have a better understanding of what we do. But Warren County Sheriff does call us. I'd like to see more calls. Glens Falls PD does not really use us, which is unfortunate because we're very close to them. And we've met with the folks over there, so I'm not really sure necessarily what the pushback is on that. The few times they have called us, within 2 minutes of calling us, if we're not there in 10 seconds, they cancel the call and they say it takes too long to get there. But it's within like a couple of minutes of calling us. But I don't know enough about those calls and what, you know, what ended up ending the call. So maybe they were calls that just ended up needing to go. But I do think that we would like to see them utilize this more, because I do think that, especially being that they're in like the city, they end up probably interfacing with individuals that don't necessarily need to go to the hospital. But I think that, again, just like the community, it's easy to call 911. Law enforcement doesn't have the resources or have had any other options. So the only option was to drive people to the hospital, and really trying to get people out of that method would help.
Okay, I appreciate that. Supervisor Driscoll, do you want to follow up with Glens Falls and see if we can improve their?
Made a note to do that, and any of my other counterparts from Glens Falls are willing, but I'll reach out to Chief Smith about that.
All right, thank you. So the good news is that these services are provided in the county, or where in many communities across the country it doesn't exist. The last question I have is, what, if anything, can we do to improve? And you don't have to answer it now if you don't want to, but if there's things that we can do, especially from this board's perspective, let us know what we can do to further support public outreach, whatever it may be. I'm not sure that the public is aware of the services that are available. As Supervisor Driscoll said, the typical response is to call 911 first. And in many communities, we're trying to find diversions for that, right? And some places it's working well and some not. So think about, you're always welcome to come back to us if you say, you know, we really could use this help or this practice or process, and let us know that. But we're very grateful for you appearing today, providing an overview of what's offered throughout Warren County. Thank you. Any other questions before we conclude?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'm sorry. Supervisor Seaver?
Before she leaves the podium there, I guess my question here, just last month, we did a mental health awareness proclamation. I think the board is taking a much more active role in talking about the seriousness of mental health and also the increase over COVID. particularly as we start to recover and rebound. 988, that hotline number is coming out in July. It's replacing the national suicide number, and it's going to be for mental health crisis referrals. I know our sheriff talked during criminal justice reform about a referral card handing out to people with different phone numbers on it. I assume their number is on it, but hopefully we'll be adding 988. And I also think our involvement with NACO, our National Association of Counties, they should have some handout information and some resources that we could duplicate. We have an in-house print shop. I'm sure that we could provide to all the municipalities an easy business card with 988 or with their information as well. About North Rivers, but I do think a budget officer makes a really important point about investing in this long term. I would like to ask this committee, and I can make it an emotion if need be, but I would like to see it on our agenda until we have the answers that we need to have. I would like to see our county administrator do some legwork here and work with the chair, not only of Warren County, but the chairs of the surrounding counties that services are provided with. I had an opportunity to speak with Ray Agnew from the hospital about the adult response team that they have in Albany. I've used it in my prior professional career, and it's been very good and responsive. Good isn't a great word for that. They've been excellent in terms of responsive to suicide assessments. And, with the affiliation with Albany Med, maybe that's something Glens Falls Hospital could look at. But I think there's a lot of legwork. Our board could do more. And I'm just asking that our county administrator prioritize this as an initiative from this committee that we're committed to above and beyond ARPA dollars to wanting to help mental health and address that within our community. And I think in talking with the other counties, as you Mr. Chairman, as criminal justice, about where those resources could go, how we could all contribute, and then also coordinating with a hospital as 988 is starting to be deployed, and what we could do to provide more information to our municipalities as a county. I think that would be really helpful. And I wondered what my fellow committee members thought of that and if a resolution was needed, but I would like to see that be a priority of ours. Thank you.
Thank you. Administrator Ryan? Sure. You feel confident in following up and making this a priority? I think we all agree. Anybody disagree with that? Thank you, Supervisor Seaver. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Sheriff, any last thoughts? No? All right. Again, thank you very much for your appearance. You're relieved of duty.
Do you have any materials with you?
I do in my car.
Okay, that's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I do have at least some business cards, but I can always, what I can do is email you our overview flyer if you want to.
That'd be terrific. Yeah. I'm sure you can't hear on those that are remote, but Jan offered to send us an email with their contact information and overview of services. We'll make sure everybody gets that.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open up privilege of the floor. Anything else for discussion?
Yeah, thank you.
Just one quick item. Our next scheduled meeting, I believe, is June 20th. Amanda, am I correct? June 20th. I may be out of town for that day. And if so, the ability to have remote meetings, I believe that law expires it's probably before June 20th, right? So the issue is if that law's, the ability to have remote meetings is not extended, then I could attend the meeting, I believe, but I couldn't chair the meeting or vote. Is that right?
Yep.
I wouldn't be counted as attendance either. So Supervisor Bramer, do you know June 20th if you're available?
I'm looking at my calendar. I think I'll be here.
Okay. So there'll be more to come on that, I'm sure, but that's just a little advance notice.
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anything else for privilege of the floor? If not, we met within our time limits and I appreciate that. Accept a motion to adjourn. Motion by Supervisor Bramer, second. Supervisor Driscoll. On a discussion. Any other questions on the motion? None?